Welcome, dear listener. Welcome to this quiet space where the night unfolds its gentle mysteries, where the cosmos whispers its ancient stories just for you. Tonight we drift together into something extraordinary, something that happened far above us in the velvet darkness of space. But there's no need to grasp at details, no need to hold on to every word. Simply let yourself settle deeper into comfort. Let your shoulders release their weight. Let your breath find its own natural rhythm, slow and steady like the turning of distant worlds. As we journey together through the next few hours, imagine the night sky above you, vast and patient, opening its quiet secrets one by one. The stars have been waiting there, watching, holding stories older than memory itself. And tonight, one of those stories has reached a new chapter, a chapter that involves something called Three-Eye Atlas, a wanderer from beyond our solar system, and the way it has touched Mars with its presence. You don't need to follow every word, you don't need to remember. Simply let the story carry you like a gentle current carries a leaf on a midnight stream, drifting, floating, moving toward rest. Before we begin this journey together, if you find peace in these words, if this voyage through the cosmic night brings you comfort, consider leaving a soft mark of your presence. Like and subscribe to this channel, and in the comments below, share with us which country cradles you tonight, and at what hour you're listening. Are you in the deep night or the early morning? Are you where the sun has just set, or where it's about to rise? We're all under the same sky after all, just in different moments of its turning. Now let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let your body sink deeper into whatever surface holds you. And let us begin to drift together into the hidden wonders of what happened when a visitor from the stars reached the red planet, and why the halls of NASA fell into an unexpected silence. Imagine, if you will, the darkness between stars, not the darkness of an unlit room, but a deeper darkness, a darkness that stretches across distances so vast that light itself takes years, centuries, millennia to cross them. In this darkness there is peace, there is silence, there is the slow, patient movement of things older than our sun. Through this darkness, something has been traveling, not for years, not for decades, but for times beyond our easy counting. A wanderer, a visitor, something that was not born in our solar system, that never felt the warmth of our sun in its earliest days, that formed instead around some distant star whose light we may never see. The scientists called it Three-Eye Atlas, a name made of numbers and letters, but think of it instead as simply the Wanderer. The third interstellar object we've detected, discovered by a telescope system called Atlas, that watches the sky with patient, unblinking attention. But names don't matter so much right now. What matters is the journey. What matters is that this visitor, this wanderer from beyond, has traveled across the vast ocean of space, has crossed the boundary where our sun's influence fades into the cosmic background, has moved past the outer planets with their rings and moons, past Jupiter's great storms, past the asteroid belt's gentle, tumbling rocks. And it has reached Mars, the red planet, the rusty world, the planet that hangs in our sky, sometimes like a steady ember, reminding us that we are not alone, that Earth is just one world among many, all of us circling the same golden star. Picture Mars in your mind, but softly, gently. Don't strain to see details, just imagine a sphere of rust-colored dust, ancient riverbeds that haven't felt water in billions of years, canyons deeper than any on Earth, volcanoes so tall they pierce through most of the thin atmosphere. A world of stillness and silence, where dust storms the size of continents sweep across empty plains, where two tiny moons named Phobos and Deimos circle overhead like faithful companions. Into this realm, the wanderer came, not crashing, not colliding, but passing. moving through the space around Mars like a thought moving through a dream, there and then gone, but leaving something changed in its wake. At NASA, in those vast halls where thousands work to understand the cosmos, where screens glow with data from spacecraft scattered throughout the solar system, something extraordinary happened. Systems began showing readings that didn't match expectations. Spacecraft orbiting Mars began sending data that required explanation. And in the careful, measured world of space science, where every decision is weighed and considered, where protocols exist for nearly every scenario, a decision was made, a shutdown, a pause, a moment of stillness in the vast machinery of space exploration. Not a shutdown of fear, but of caution. Not a shutdown of failure, but of respect for something unknown, something that required full attention, complete understanding before proceeding. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's drift back, let's float gently backward to understand how we came to this moment. Let your breath carry you back, each exhale releasing you further into this story, each inhale drawing you deeper into calm. The Wanderer didn't announce its coming. It simply appeared in the careful watch of telescopes, a faint point of light moving against the background stars, moving in a way that didn't match the orbits of anything that belonged to our solar system. Its path was hyperbolic, not elliptical. It was passing through, not staying, a visitor, not a resident. When astronomers first calculated its trajectory, they felt that unique thrill that comes from encountering something truly from elsewhere. This wasn't a comet from the Oort cloud, that vast sphere of icy bodies that surrounds our solar system. This wasn't an asteroid that had been orbiting our sun since the solar system's birth. This was interstellar. This had come from the space between stars, and its path, refined with each observation, each careful measurement, showed it would pass close to Mars, not impact, not collide, but close enough that the red planet's gravity would bend its path slightly, would add its own small signature to the Wanderer's eternal journey. Close enough for something else too. Close enough for effects that no one had fully predicted. Let yourself imagine being on Mars in those moments, not as a human, not with the need for a spacesuit or habitat, but as pure awareness, as a dream witness to this cosmic dance. You're standing on the rust-colored dust, and the sky above is that strange Martian pink, and the sun hangs there smaller than it appears from Earth, giving less warmth, casting longer shadows, and then moving across that sky, faster than any moon, faster than the rising or setting of distant stars, comes the Wanderer. Perhaps it's too small to see with an unaided eye. Perhaps it would just be a point of light, a star that moves, but you sense it. You feel it. The way you might feel something changing in a dream, a shift in the story, a new presence entering. The Martian wind, thin as it is, continues its endless work, lifting dust in gentle veils. The volcanoes stand silent, their fires long extinguished. The ancient riverbeds sleep under layers of sand and time, and through it all, past it all, moves this visitor from the stars. What must it be like to travel so far? To be born in one stellar system and journey to another? To never return to the place of your making, but to drift forever through the cosmic ocean, touching briefly on other worlds, other systems, other stories? The Wanderer is small as these things are measured, perhaps a few hundred meters across, perhaps less. Not a world, not even a mountain, just a piece of something, a fragment that broke free from wherever it formed and began a journey that may never end. Its surface might be dark, or icy, or rocky. We can only guess, can only imagine, can only drift alongside it in our thoughts. But small doesn't mean insignificant. In the universe, size is relative. A photon is tiny, but it can travel from a distant galaxy and bring news of the cosmos's birth. An atom is invisible, but enough of them together make everything you see and touch The Wanderer, small as it might be, carried with it something that would change our understanding, would prompt that shutdown at NASA, would write a new chapter in our exploration of Mars. As it approached, spacecraft in orbit around Mars began their observations. These are our emissaries, our robotic ambassadors to the Red Planet. They circle Mars day after day, year after year, mapping its surface, measuring its atmosphere, watching its weather, searching for signs of ancient water, ancient life, ancient stories written in stone and dust. Now they turn their instruments toward this newcomer. Cameras captured images, spectrometers analyzed reflected light, trying to understand what the Wanderer was made of. Radar probed its surface. Every instrument, every sensor, every carefully calibrated device worked to gather data, to understand, to see. And what they saw was extraordinary. But that's a story for later, for deeper in our journey together. For now, just let yourself float in this moment of approach, this moment of convergence between the Wanderer from distant stars and the red planet that has captured human imagination for millennia. Your breath is slow now, steady like the orbits of planets, like the turning of galaxies. Each breath carries you deeper into this story, deeper into rest. The details don't matter, the names fade. What remains is the wonder, the gentle amazement at the universe's vast choreography, the way things meet and part in the cosmic dance. In the beginning, there was only one way to know the universe, with eyes, with sight, with the ancient and patient act of watching the sky. Our ancestors looked up at night and saw the stars wheeling overhead, saw the moon waxing and waning, saw the planets moving their strange, retrograde paths against the background of constellations. They told stories about what they saw. They wove myths and legends. They tried to understand. This is still what we do fundamentally. We watch, we observe, we try to understand. But our eyes have become more sophisticated, extended across the electromagnetic spectrum, amplified by mirrors and lenses and sensors that can detect whispers of light from the edge of the observable universe. The light that reaches us is patient. It doesn't hurry. A photon leaving the surface of the Wanderer takes time to cross the space to our instruments, but not much time at these distances. Minutes, perhaps. A brief journey by cosmic standards. But that photon carries information, carries news, carries the signature of what it touched before beginning its journey. When light reflects off a surface, it changes slightly. Different materials reflect different wavelengths. Some surfaces absorb blue light and reflect red, appearing red to our eyes. Others do the reverse. Some reflect almost nothing, appearing dark. Others reflect everything, shining bright. By carefully analyzing the light that returns from an object, we can understand what that object is made of, even from vast distances. This is the language of spectroscopy, and it's a gentle language, a language of subtle variations and careful interpretation. Imagine if you could learn about someone just by studying the way light reflected off their skin, their clothes, their surroundings. In a way, you can. We all do this unconsciously, reading colors and brightness and shadow. But instruments can read much more, can detect patterns invisible to human eyes, can find messages written in wavelengths we cannot see. As the Wanderer approached Mars, as our spacecraft turned their instruments toward it, they spoke to it in this language of light. They sent radio waves and received radio echoes. They measured the sunlight bouncing off its surface. They watched how it moved, how it tumbled or didn't tumble, how its brightness changed or stayed constant. And the Wanderer answered. Not in words, not in intentions, but in the physical poetry of electromagnetic radiation. It answered with its composition, its structure, its history, written in atoms and molecules arranged across its surface. What it said surprised everyone, but again we're drifting ahead. Let's stay here a moment longer in this space of observation, of patient watching, of data streaming across the void. The spacecraft orbiting Mars are marvels of engineering, but think of them instead as messengers, as translators, as careful witnesses. They don't sleep, they don't rest, they orbit and observe, sending their findings back to Earth in streams of radio waves that cross the vast distance at the speed of light. That distance, from Mars to Earth, varies. Sometimes the planets are on the same side of the Sun, relatively close, and the light takes just a few minutes to cross between them. Sometimes they're on opposite sides, and the journey takes 20 minutes or more. The spacecraft don't know or care about this delay. They simply send their data, patient, constant, and wait for the occasional command from home. Imagine being one of those spacecraft, not in a sad or lonely way, but in a peaceful way. You circle a planet day after day, year after year. You watch the dust storms form and dissipate. You see the polar caps grow in winter and shrink in summer. You map the surface with such detail that future visitors will know exactly where to land, where to explore, where to search for answers to ancient questions. Your existence is purpose itself. You don't question. You don't doubt. You simply do what you were made to do perfectly, constantly, until one day your power fades or your systems fail and you become another piece of human history orbiting forever in the Martian sky. And then something new enters your field of view, something that wasn't in your original mission parameters, something interstellar. Your processors calculate new observation sequences, your instruments rotate and focus, your cameras capture images with exposures timed to catch faint objects against the stars. Your spectrometers split incoming light into its component wavelengths, creating rainbow patterns that encode the secrets of composition. All of this happens automatically, the result of programming written by scientists on Earth, uploaded months or years ago, instructions anticipated but never certain until the moment arrived. And yet it feels almost like curiosity, almost like wonder, this turning towards something new, this gathering of data about a visitor from beyond. Back on Earth, in the control rooms and offices at NASA, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, at the Applied Physics Laboratory, at universities and observatories around the world, scientists wait for the data to arrive. They've calculated when it should come, accounting for the light speed delay, the downlink windows when spacecraft can communicate with Earth's receiving stations. And then it arrives, not all at once, but in streams, in packets, in carefully ordered sequences that must be assembled and processed and calibrated before they can be properly understood. Raw data becomes images, signal patterns become spectra, numbers become measurements. This is the moment where science begins to whisper its secrets, where the patient work of observation transforms into understanding, where data points a line into patterns, patterns suggest explanations, and explanations reshape what we thought we knew. The first images of the Wanderer showed something unusual, not threatening, not alarming, but definitely unusual. Its shape was irregular, as expected for something that had likely been broken off from a larger body at some point in its past. But its surface properties, its reflectivity, its color, these were unexpected. It was darker than most objects in our solar system, absorbing most of the light that touched it, reflecting back only a small fraction. This suggested a surface rich in organic compounds, carbon-based molecules that form naturally in the cold regions between stars, in the clouds of gas and dust, where new stars and planets are born. But there was more. The spectrum showed features that didn't quite match anything we'd seen before. Absorption lines at specific wavelengths that suggested compounds present in unusual combinations or concentrations. Nothing that violated physics, nothing impossible, but definitely intriguing, definitely worth further investigation. And there was something else, something that would only become apparent after more analysis, after more data, after careful comparison with models and theories. But We'll drift toward that discovery slowly, gently, letting it reveal itself in its own time. For now, let yourself rest in this space of patient observation. The universe reveals its secrets slowly, not because it's hiding them, but because understanding takes time, takes careful work, takes the accumulation of data point after data point, until patterns emerge from noise and knowledge crystallizes from observation. Your breathing is even slower now, matching perhaps the orbital periods of moons around distant planets. Slow cycles of inhale and exhale, each one carrying you deeper into this story, deeper into rest. The technical details fade. What remains is the essence, the poetry of discovery, the gentle revelation of cosmic truth. In space, there is no hurry. Objects orbit according to the mathematics of gravity, moving at precisely the speeds that balance the pull inward with the momentum carrying them forward. The wanderer approached Mars at whatever speed resulted from its trajectory, from the stars where it was born, from every gravitational encounter it had experienced in its long journey. Mars continued its orbit around the Sun, patient, unchanging, rust-colored and quiet. The spacecraft continued their observations, gathering data, sending signals home. And on Earth, scientists began to realize that something extraordinary was unfolding, something that would require all their attention, all their resources, all their collaborative effort to understand. The first hints of what would lead to the shutdown came from the spacecraft closest to the wanderer's projected path. Its instruments detected something subtle at first, barely above the noise threshold, a perturbation, a deviation, something that suggested the wanderer's influence extended beyond its small physical size. Mars has an atmosphere, thin as it is. Just about 1% the density of Earth's atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide, with traces of nitrogen and argon and water vapor. It's too thin to breathe, too thin to offer much protection from radiation, too thin to carry much heat. But it's there and it moves and it responds to changes. When the wanderer passed close to Mars, something happened in that thin atmosphere. Something subtle, something that required sensitive instruments to detect, but something real, something measurable, something that would eventually contribute to NASA's decision to pause and assess. The atmospheric monitoring instruments on the spacecraft began detecting anomalies. Not huge changes, not dramatic shifts, but variations outside the expected parameters. Density fluctuations at certain altitudes, temperature variations that didn't match the usual patterns, subtle electromagnetic effects that suggested charged particles behaving in unexpected ways. At first, these readings were puzzling. Mars's atmosphere is variable, yes, affected by the sun's radiation, by seasonal changes, by dust storms and surface heating. But these new variations didn't match those familiar patterns. They seemed to correlate with the wanderer's approach, growing stronger as it came closer, persisting even after it passed. Think of the Martian atmosphere as a very quiet pond, disturbed only by gentle, familiar ripples. The sun rises and sets, creating thermal waves. The seasons change, creating pressure variations. But these are known, expected, understood. Now imagine dropping a stone into that pond, a small stone, but one made of a material that creates ripples of a different frequency, a different amplitude, something that interferes with the existing waves in unexpected ways. That's what was happening. The wanderer, small as it was creating effects in the Martian environment that extended beyond its physical presence. How? That was the question. That was what needed to be understood. As you listen to this, let your mind drift like those atmospheric currents, gently swirling, mixing, never still but never rushed. Your body is heavy now, sinking deeper into rest. The details of atmospheric physics can fade into background, leaving only the sense of something unexpected, something new, something that required careful attention. The scientists at NASA began analyzing the data more intensively. They compared it with models, with simulations, with everything they knew about how objects interact with planetary environments. They consulted with experts in plasma physics, in atmospheric dynamics, in exospheric chemistry. They ran calculations and built new models and tried to reproduce what they were seeing. And slowly, an explanation began to emerge. Not a complete explanation, not yet, but the outlines of one. The Wanderer, it appeared, was not magnetically inert. Despite its small size, despite its composition, it possessed or had acquired a magnetic field of some kind. Not a strong field, not a planetary-scale magnetosphere, but something that interacted with the solar wind, with the charged particles constantly streaming out from the sun. Mars doesn't have a global magnetic field anymore. It did once, billions of years ago, when its interior was hotter and convecting molten metals created a protective magnetic bubble around the planet. But that field died as the planet's core cooled, and now Mars is exposed directly to the solar wind. Its thin atmosphere is slowly being stripped away by those charged particles, lost to space at a rate of about 100 tons per day. When the Wanderer approached, its magnetic field, weak as it might be, created a temporary perturbation in this process. It created a small region where the solar wind behaved differently, where charged particles were deflected or channeled or accelerated in ways they normally weren't. And the Martian atmosphere, sensitive and thin, responded to these changes. Imagine two magnets approaching each other. Even before they touch, even when they're still separated by space, you can feel them interacting, either attracting or repelling. Magnetic fields extend beyond the objects that generate them, creating invisible patterns in space, influencing other magnetic fields and charged particles they encounter. The Wanderer brought its own magnetic field into the Martian environment, and for a brief time, things changed. Not dramatically, not catastrophically, but measurably, detectably, interestingly. But there was more. The instruments on the spacecraft were detecting something else, something even more subtle. There were changes in the dust. Martian dust is everywhere. It covers the surface, floats in the atmosphere, settles on solar panels and rocks and the long silent rovers that explored the surface years ago. It's fine, like talcum powder, and it's charged. Static electricity is common in dust storms. Particles rubbing against each other in the thin, dry air generate electrical charges, creating fields, creating sometimes even visible electrical discharges in the largest storms. The dust in the atmosphere seemed to be responding to the Wanderer's passage. Particles were aligning, creating subtle patterns detectable by scattered sunlight. The patterns suggested that the dust grains were responding to electromagnetic forces, not just the usual gravitational and aerodynamic forces. This was unexpected, this was new, this was worth understanding deeply before proceeding with normal operations. NASA's spacecraft around Mars are valuable, irreplaceable. Each one represents years of work, hundreds of millions of dollars, the hopes and dedication of thousands of people. They can't be risked unnecessarily. And while nothing about the Wanderer seemed directly threatening, the unexpected effects it was having on the Martian environment raised legitimate questions. What if these electromagnetic effects could interfere with spacecraft systems? What if they could cause charged particles to accumulate on sensitive instruments? What if they represented a phenomenon that wasn't yet understood, that could have implications for future missions, for human exploration, for our understanding of how interstellar objects interact with planetary systems? The decision was made carefully, deliberately. Not a panic response, not a frightened retreat, but a measured pause, a strategic shutdown of non-essential operations, a redirection of resources toward observation and analysis, a choice to understand before proceeding. This is how science works at its best. Not rushing, not assuming, but carefully observing, thoroughly analyzing, making decisions based on data rather than speculation. It might seem cautious to some, even overly cautious, but when dealing with irreplaceable assets in an unforgiving environment millions of miles away, caution is wisdom. Let yourself appreciate this careful approach. this patient methodology. In your own life, in your own decisions, there's value in pausing, in observing, in understanding before acting. The universe teaches this lesson constantly. Rush and you miss details. Hurry and you make errors. But proceed with patient attention and the truth reveals itself in its own time. Your body knows this already. It doesn't rush to heal. It doesn't hurry to rest. It proceeds at its own pace, cellular processes unfolding in their carefully orchestrated timing, breath following breath, heartbeat following heartbeat, each one perfect in its rhythm. As you drift deeper into sleep or toward it, let this story continue to unfold at its own pace. The Wanderer has passed Mars now, continuing its eternal journey outward, away from the sun, back into the dark between stars. It will never return. Its trajectory, bent slightly by Mars's gravity, now carries it out of our solar system forever, off toward some distant region of the galaxy it will reach in thousands or millions of years. But its effects remain, the data remains, the questions remain. And NASA in its careful way works to answer them, works to understand what happened during those brief hours when an interstellar visitor touched our neighboring world and reminded us how much we still have to learn about the universe we inhabit. There are moments in science when data points a line in ways that suggest something deeper, something that reaches beyond the immediate question into realms of broader understanding. The Wanderer's passage by Mars was creating one of those moments, though it would take time for the full implications to unfold. As scientists analyzed the electromagnetic data, as they studied the atmospheric perturbations and the dust alignment patterns, as they compared observations from multiple spacecraft and instruments, something curious emerged. The magnetic field associated with the Wanderer wasn't behaving quite like a typical magnetic field. Magnetic fields have poles north and south, and they create characteristic patterns in space. Iron filings on paper over a bar magnet make those patterns visible, those beautiful arcing lines from pole to pole. The Wanderer's field had poles, yes, but the field geometry was more complex than a simple dipole. It was multipolar, with features that suggested internal structure, organization, something that wasn't simply random. This was intriguing because the Wanderer was small, probably not differentiated into layers like a planet. Objects its size usually don't have organized magnetic fields. They might have weak fields if they contain magnetic minerals, but those fields are typically disorganized, the result of many small magnetic domains pointing in random directions, largely canceling each other out. But the Wanderer's field suggested organization. It suggested that somehow, perhaps through its long journey through interstellar space, perhaps through exposure to cosmic rays and stellar winds, perhaps through some process not yet understood, its magnetic minerals had become aligned. Or perhaps, and this is where the mystery deepens, perhaps it carried something else, something that generated the field through a different mechanism entirely. Let your mind drift gently around this puzzle, not trying to solve it, just appreciating its shape, its texture. Mysteries don't need immediate solutions. Sometimes they're most beautiful when they remain partially veiled, when they invite wonder rather than provide answers. The team analyzing the spectroscopic data was making discoveries of their own. The organic compounds detected on the Wanderer's surface weren't just the simple molecules expected in interstellar material. There were complex molecules, long-chain hydrocarbons, possibly even amino acid precursors. Nothing alive, nothing biological, but the building blocks that could, under the right conditions, lead toward chemistry that might one day become biology. This wasn't entirely surprising. Scientists have known for decades that complex organic molecules form naturally in space, in the cold molecular clouds where stars are born, on the surfaces of asteroids and comets, in the atmospheres of certain planets and moons. But finding them on an interstellar object, something that had formed around a different star, in a different chemical environment, that added a new data point to our understanding of how common these molecules are throughout the galaxy. If complex organic molecules form readily in different stellar systems, if they survive the long journey through interstellar space, if they can be delivered to planets and moons throughout the galaxy, then the building blocks of life are truly universal. Then Earth's origin story is not unique but part of a cosmic pattern, repeated endlessly across the universe. This is a comforting thought in its way. It means we're not alone in the sense of being unique. We're part of something larger, something universal. The chemistry that led to life here has likely led to life elsewhere, perhaps in many elsewheres, perhaps in more places than we can easily imagine. Breathe into this thought, let it expand gently in your awareness. You are made of stardust, as the saying goes, but more specifically, you're made of chemistry that seems to be universal, that operates by the same rules throughout the cosmos. The atoms in your body were formed in stellar furnaces, yes, but the molecules they create, the organic compounds that make up your cells, those follow patterns that might be echoed in distant worlds orbiting distant stars. As the Wanderer continued its outbound journey, moving away from Mars at several dozen kilometers per second, the spacecraft continued their observations as long as possible. Each passing hour increased the distance, dimmed the reflected light, made the measurements more difficult, but every additional data point was valuable, every spectrum, every image, every measurement of the fading magnetic field. And then something unexpected appeared in the data. One of the spacecraft detected a brief but distinct burst of radio emission from the Wanderer's vicinity. Not a signal, not a message, nothing organized or intentional, just a natural emission, the kind that happens when charged particles interact with magnetic fields in specific ways. The burst lasted only a few seconds. It was recorded, time-stamped, stored in the spacecraft's memory for eventual downlink to Earth. In the flow of constant data, it was just one more event, one more measurement among thousands. But when scientists on Earth analyzed it, when they looked at its characteristics, its frequency, its polarization, they realized it was consistent with something called synchrotron radiation. Synchrotron radiation occurs when charged particles, usually electrons, spiral at very high speeds through magnetic fields. The acceleration involved causes them to emit electromagnetic radiation, often in radio frequencies. It's how we can detect the magnetic fields around neutron stars and black holes, how we can map the invisible magnetospheres of distant planets. It's a signature of energetic processes, of particles moving at relativistic speeds. But why would such a process be occurring around the Wanderer? It was just a small, rocky or icy body, not an active engine of particle acceleration. It didn't have a powerful magnetic field or an internal dynamo. Yet there was the signal, clear and measurable, suggesting that somehow particles were being accelerated to high energies in its vicinity. This mystery layered upon the earlier mysteries: the organized magnetic field, the complex organic molecules. Now this. Evidence of particle acceleration. Each piece was interesting on its own. Together they suggested that the Wanderer was more complex, more active than simple appearances indicated. NASA's shutdown began to make even more sense in this context. These weren't dangers, necessarily, but unknowns, and in space exploration, unknowns require caution, require study, require understanding before proceeding. Let these mysteries rest gently in your mind as your body rests on your bed. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to understand them completely. Just let them be there like stars in the night sky, points of light against darkness, beautiful in their distance and their mystery. The scientists working on these questions weren't frustrated by the lack of immediate answers. Good scientists rarely are. They were energized, excited, engaged in the process of discovery. Each new question opened new avenues of investigation. Each mystery invited new theoretical work, new modeling, new observations. Papers began to be written, hypotheses proposed, debates engaged. The scientific community, global and collaborative, turned its collective attention to understanding what the Wanderer had revealed during its brief encounter with Mars. Some proposed that the organized magnetic field was a relic from the Wanderer's formation, frozen into its structure during a time when it was part of a larger, differentiated body that had its own magnetic field. When that body broke apart, perhaps through collision, the Wanderer carried away a piece of that ancient field, preserved in magnetic minerals aligned in the same direction. Others suggested that the field might be induced, created by the Wanderer's motion through the interstellar magnetic field. Like a wire moving through a magnetic field generates an electrical current, perhaps the Wanderer's long journey through space had created electrical currents in its interior, which in turn generated the observed magnetic field. Still others proposed more exotic explanations involving plasma effects or unusual mineralogy, or even the possibility that the Wanderer contained materials not commonly found in our solar system, materials from a stellar environment with different chemistry, different conditions during formation. Each hypothesis was explored, tested against the data, refined or discarded based on how well it explained the observations. This is the slow, careful dance of scientific investigation, not rushing to conclusions, but building understanding step by step, data point by data point. As for the particle acceleration, that required even more creative thinking. Perhaps the Wanderer's surface was outgassing, releasing charged particles as volatile ices sublimated in the increased sunlight closer to the sun. Those particles interacting with the magnetic field could be accelerated, or perhaps cosmic rays hitting the Wanderer's surface created secondary particles that were then caught and accelerated by the magnetic field. The explanations were tentative, provisional, subject to revision as more data became available, but that's always how science works. Understanding is never final, never complete. It's always being refined, always being improved, always being brought into sharper focus as new information arrives. In the vastness of space, everything moves. Nothing is truly still. Even objects that seem stationary are actually moving, orbiting, rotating, drifting in response to gravitational forces that extend across light years. The Wanderer moves, Mars moves, Earth moves, the Sun moves, carrying its family of planets through the galaxy at a speed of over 200 kilometers per second, completing one orbit around the galactic center roughly every 225 million years. The galaxy itself moves, falling toward other galaxies in our local group, part of larger structures and flows that shape the universe on its grandest scales. This motion is not chaotic. It's orchestrated by gravity, that weakest of forces that nonetheless shapes the cosmos on the largest scales. Gravity creates orbits, stable patterns where an object's forward motion balances its inward fall, creating closed or open curves through space that can persist for billions of years. Your heartbeat is a rhythm. Your breath is a rhythm. The day and night cycle is a rhythm. The tides respond to the moon's rhythm. Everything in nature moves in cycles, in patterns, in repeating motions that create the familiar world we experience. The same is true on cosmic scales. Planets orbit in predictable paths. Moons circle their planets. Binary stars waltz around each other. Galaxy clusters draw together and apart in a vast, slow dance that takes billions of years to complete. The Wanderer's path through our solar system was part of this cosmic choreography. It came from somewhere, from some stellar system where it formed in the disk of gas and dust around a young star, where it orbited for perhaps millions or billions of years before some gravitational perturbation, some close encounter with a massive planet or another star, ejected it into interstellar space. Then came the long journey, alone in the dark between stars, moving at whatever velocity its ejection gave it, gradually slowing from the gravitational pull of its birth system, gradually accelerating toward other gravitational sources. The galaxy's overall rotation carried it on vast circles. Encounters with molecular clouds might have changed its trajectory slightly. The collective gravity of millions of stars influenced its path, creating a trajectory that was the sum of countless tiny forces acting over vast times. And eventually, by chance, by the simple probability that space is large and trajectories numerous, it entered our solar system. It passed the outer planets, felt their gravitational pulls, had its path bent and altered by their massive presences, and it came to Mars. The whole process took time beyond easy comprehension. The Wanderer might be millions of years old. The journey from its birth system to ours might have taken hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions. We don't know. We can't know without understanding where it came from. And the vastness of space makes that nearly impossible to determine with certainty. But we can imagine. Let your imagination drift with the Wanderer backward through time, backward through space. See it moving through the dark, through clouds of gas, so tenuous, they're nearly perfect vacuums by Earth standards, past other stars with their own planets, their own stories. See it tumbling slowly, rotating once every few hours or days, its surface alternately warming in distant starlight and cooling in shadow. For most of that journey, the Wanderer experienced nothing, no atmosphere to create friction, no weather, no erosion except the patient work of cosmic rays and micrometeorite impacts. Time passed, the galaxy turned, stars formed and died, and the Wanderer drifted on, a silent testament to the fact that some journeys never end, some travelers never return home. Your own body knows about journeys and rhythms. Your blood circulates, completing a full cycle through your body every minute. Your cells divide and die and are replaced according to schedules that vary by tissue type. Your neurons fire in patterns that create thought, consciousness, the sense of being you. All of this happens in rhythm, in cycles, in patterns that sustain life. The atoms in your body have their own ancient journeys. They were formed in stars that died before our sun was born, scattered into space by supernova explosions, mixed into the molecular cloud that collapsed to form our solar system. They became part of Earth, part of the chemicals in the ancient ocean where life began, part of the food chain that has sustained living things for billions of years. And now they're part of you, temporarily, because you'll return them to the environment when you die, and they'll continue their journey, becoming part of other things, other beings, other stories. In this way, you're not separate from the Wanderer. You're made of the same stuff, governed by the same physical laws, part of the same cosmic story. The atoms in your hand might have formed in the same stellar generation as the atoms in the Wanderer, scattered by the same supernova, part of the same enrichment of the galaxy with heavy elements. This is the deep connection that astronomy reveals. We're not observers separate from what we observe. We're part of it, made of it. The universe looking at itself, understanding itself through us. The Wanderer passed Mars during a season when the northern hemisphere was experiencing spring, when the polar ice cap was sublimating slightly, releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The dust storm season was ending. The thin air was relatively clear, allowing sunlight to warm the surface during the short Martian day. On the surface, if any instrument had been watching from there, the Wanderer's passage would have been invisible, too small, too distant, too fast. But its effects, those subtle electromagnetic perturbations, those dust alignments, those ripples in the thin atmosphere, those were real. Those happened. Those were the Wanderer's signature, its temporary mark on a world it would never see again. Mars has been visited by many objects over its long history. Asteroids and comets have impacted its surface, creating the craters that dot its landscape. The two moons, Phobos and Deimos, are probably captured asteroids, pulled into orbit by Mars's gravity at some point in the distant past. Dust particles from countless sources settle onto the surface constantly, adding to the layers that future geologists might one day study to understand the planet's history. But an interstellar visitor, that's rare. That might have happened before in Mars's history, but if it did, it left no record we can detect. The Wanderer's Passage will be remembered only in our instruments, our data, our scientific papers and analyses. Mars itself won't remember, but we will. Memory is itself a kind of rhythm, a pattern. Your brain stores memories by strengthening connections between neurons, by creating pathways that fire together, encoding experience into physical structure. Sleep helps consolidate those memories, transferring them from short-term to long-term storage, integrating them with existing knowledge, making them part of who you are. As you drift deeper into sleep tonight, your brain is doing this work, processing the day's experiences, strengthening important connections, letting unimportant ones fade. It's maintaining the patterns that make you continuous with your past self, that let you wake tomorrow as the same person who fell asleep tonight. The universe has no memory in this sense. Events happen and pass, leaving effects but not memories. A supernova scatters atoms but doesn't remember doing so. A planet orbits but doesn't recall its previous circuits. Only in conscious beings does the universe become capable of remembering itself, of knowing its own history, of understanding its own patterns. This is why the NASA shutdown, while temporary, was so important. It protected not just the spacecraft but the instruments of memory, the devices that record and transmit what happens in space, so that we can know it, can remember it, can add it to our growing understanding of the cosmos. The data from the Wanderer's Passage is stored now in multiple locations, backed up, analyzed, incorporated into papers and presentations and databases. Future scientists will be able to access it, to reanalyze it with better tools, to perhaps see patterns that we're missing now. The memory is preserved, part of humanity's collective knowledge. In the quiet of your rest, let yourself appreciate this. Billions of humans have lived and died, and most of their individual experiences are lost to time. But the collective knowledge we've gained, the understanding we've built together, that persists. It accumulates. Each generation adds to it, standing on the shoulders of previous generations, seeing further, understanding more deeply. The Wanderer has given us another small piece of that knowledge, nothing revolutionary perhaps, nothing that overturns our understanding of physics or chemistry, but another data point, another example, another thread in the vast tapestry of cosmic understanding we're slowly weaving. There is a quality to space that's hard to convey in words, a quality of patience, of slowness, of time, moving at scales that dwarf human experience. We measure our lives in years, our history in thousands of years, our species' existence in hundreds of thousands of years. But cosmic events unfold over millions, billions of years. Time scales so vast they're nearly impossible to truly comprehend. The Wanderer's journey from its birth star to our solar system probably took longer than human civilization has existed. The light from distant galaxies we see tonight started its journey before Earth formed. The atoms in your body were forged in stellar furnaces billions of years ago, then waited in various forms until they came together as you. This vast patience is everywhere in the universe. Stars burn for billions of years. Galaxies slowly evolve over even longer timescales. The universe itself has been expanding for 13.8 billion years and will continue for trillions more, eventually cooling into darkness so complete that no new stars can form, no new life can begin. Only the slow decay of matter itself over times so long they have no human meaning. Yet in this vast patience there are moments of connection. The Wanderer, traveling for possibly hundreds of thousands of years, passed within a few thousand kilometers of Mars over the course of a few hours. Our spacecraft, built over a few years, operating for perhaps a decade, happened to be there to witness it, to record it, to send that information back to us. The probability of this coincidence is low, but not impossibly low. The universe is so vast, events so numerous, that rare coincidences happen constantly somewhere. We just usually aren't there to witness them. But sometimes we are. Sometimes our instruments and our curiosity and our dedication to understanding align with cosmic events in ways that create these moments of discovery. You don't need to stay awake for this part of the story. The narrative will continue whether you hear every word or not. Let yourself drift, let consciousness fade if it wants to. Your body needs rest more than your mind needs more information. The Wanderer won't mind if you sleep through parts of its story. In the control rooms at NASA, after the initial excitement of the unexpected data, after the decision to shut down non-essential operations, there came a period of intense but quiet work. Teams of scientists from different disciplines came together to analyze what had happened. Planetary scientists, plasma physicists, astronomers, astrobiologists, each bringing their expertise to bear on the mystery. They held meetings, virtual and in person, where data was presented and discussed. They ran simulations on powerful computers, trying to reproduce the observed effects, testing different hypotheses. They consulted the literature, looking for similar observations from other contexts, other missions, other events that might provide insight. This is the less glamorous side of space exploration, the careful, analytical work that happens away from public attention. No dramatic countdowns, no spectacular images, just people thinking deeply about data, about what it means, about how it fits into existing knowledge or requires that knowledge to be revised. The work continues still even now, months after the Wanderer passed Mars and continued its outbound journey. Some questions have been answered, others remain open. Some new questions have been raised that no one thought to ask before. This is healthy. This is how science should work. Not rushing to conclusions, not claiming certainty where uncertainty exists, but steadily building understanding through careful observation and analysis. The spacecraft around Mars have resumed normal operations. The shutdown was temporary, lasting only a few weeks, while the most critical analyses were performed and the risks assessed. The spacecraft are hardy, well-designed, capable of handling unexpected situations. They continued their missions, mapping Mars, studying its atmosphere, preparing for future human exploration. But they're also keeping watch in a way. Their operators have updated their software to better detect similar events, to automatically trigger enhanced observations if another interstellar object is detected approaching Mars. We learn from each encounter, each event, each surprise the universe presents. The next interstellar visitor might not come for decades, or one might arrive next year. Space is vast but also full. Millions of objects likely travel between stars constantly, most too small or distant for us to detect. The Wanderer was special only because we saw it, because it came close enough to Mars for its effects to be measured. But each one that we do detect teaches us something. Oumuamua, the first interstellar object we identified, taught us that such objects exist and that they can have surprising properties. 2I Borisov, the second, taught us that interstellar comets behave similarly to solar system comets in some ways but differently in others. Now 3I Atlas, the Wanderer, has taught us about magnetic fields and plasma effects, and the subtle ways that objects can influence planetary environments even without direct contact. The fourth interstellar object, when we detect it, will teach us something else. Each one adds to our understanding, refines our theories, expands our knowledge of what's possible in the universe. Let this pattern of accumulating knowledge mirror your own journey toward rest. Each breath adds to the relaxation. Each moment of letting go brings you closer to sleep. Each release of conscious attention allows your brain to shift into the modes it needs for restoration and memory consolidation. You don't need to remember everything you've heard. You don't need to retain every detail. Just let the story wash over you like waves on a shore, each one coming and going, each one part of a rhythm larger than any individual wave. The universe is patient. Mars will continue orbiting. The Wanderer will continue its journey. The spacecraft will continue their observations. And you will sleep and wake and continue your own journey, your own orbit, through time and space, part of the vast, interconnected web of cause and effect that makes up the cosmos. Communication in space is itself a kind of mystery, a kind of gentle wonder. When we send commands to spacecraft at Mars, those commands travel as radio waves at the speed of light, taking between 4 and 24 minutes to arrive, depending on where Earth and Mars are in their respective orbits. The spacecraft receives the command, executes it, and sends back confirmation, which takes another 4 to 24 minutes to reach us. This delay means that spacecraft operations require patience and careful planning. You can't fly a spacecraft around Mars the way you might pilot a drone, with real-time control and immediate feedback. You have to send commands, wait, hope they executed correctly, and only much later receive confirmation. It's a conversation conducted at the speed of light, but across distances that make even that cosmic speed limit feel slow. The data from the Wanderer encounter traveled this same path. Observations made by spacecraft at Mars, encoded into radio signals, transmitted across space to Earth's receiving stations, decoded and processed and analyzed. Each step in this chain is crucial. Each one requires technology working flawlessly, networks operating correctly, people doing their jobs with skill and dedication. And yet, for all this technology, for all this complexity, what we're really doing is very ancient. We're watching the sky. We're observing. We're trying to understand what we see. Our ancestors did this without instruments, noting the positions of planets, tracking the moon's phases, predicting eclipses. We do it with spacecraft and computers and global networks of experts, but the fundamental act is the same. Watch, learn, understand. The Wanderer is far from Mars now, far from Earth, far from the Sun. It's moving back into the darkness between stars, into a realm where the Sun is just another bright star among thousands, where the planets are invisible, where no human creation has ever ventured and likely never will. It will travel for thousands of years before it enters the gravitational domain of another star. Perhaps it will pass through that system as it passed through ours, unseen or unnoticed by whatever inhabitants might exist there. Perhaps it will be captured, pulled into orbit around a planet or moon, ending its journey as a new satellite of some distant world. Perhaps it will collide with something, destroyed in an instant, scattered into fragments that continue as even smaller travelers. We'll never know. It's beyond our reach now, beyond our ability to observe or follow. It entered our lives briefly and left, and we're richer for the encounter. But it's gone now, continuing a journey we can only imagine. Let this departure feel natural, not sad. Everything in the universe is temporary. Stars form and die, planets coalesce and eventually are destroyed or drift away as their stars fade. Galaxies collide and merge. Even the atoms that make up matter will eventually decay over timescales so long they're nearly meaningless. Nothing lasts forever, but that doesn't make any of it less meaningful or less beautiful while it exists. Your own life is temporary, but no less meaningful for that. The thoughts you're thinking right now will fade and be forgotten, but they're real while they exist. The experience of lying here, listening to this story, drifting towards sleep, this moment is unique, unrepeatable, temporary, and that's what makes it precious. The scientists who studied the Wanderer understand this. The data will eventually be archived, the papers will be published, and then gradually forgotten as newer discoveries take precedence. The spacecraft that made the observations will eventually fail and fall silent. But the knowledge gained becomes part of humanity's collective understanding, part of the foundation on which future discoveries will build, part of the ongoing conversation between humans and the cosmos that has continued for as long as our species has existed. In the deep quiet of space, the wanderer tumbles on. It has no awareness of the brief excitement it caused, the shutdown it prompted, the papers written about it. It simply is, existing, moving, a piece of the universe expressing the universe's fundamental tendency toward motion, toward change, toward the endless rearrangement of matter and energy. On Mars, the dust settles back into its familiar patterns. The atmosphere resumes its normal variations. The spacecraft continue their work, scanning the surface, measuring the weather, preparing for the day when humans might walk on that rust-colored soil and look up at the sky and wonder, as we've always wondered, what else is out there. The solar wind continues to strip Mars's atmosphere atom by atom, a process that will eventually leave the planet even more barren than it already is, but that will take millions of years. In the shorter term, Mars is stable, unchanging, waiting. Perhaps one day we'll establish permanent settlements there. Perhaps humans will become a multi-planetary species, living and working on Mars, on moons of the outer planets, in habitats scattered throughout the solar system. Perhaps we'll even find evidence of ancient Martian life, fossils preserved in sediments from when the planet had rivers and lakes and maybe even oceans. Or perhaps we won't. Perhaps Mars will remain a place we visit but never truly settle. Perhaps the challenges of living there are too great, the benefits too small. Perhaps we'll focus instead on Earth, on preserving and protecting the one world we know for certain can sustain human life. Either way, Mars will continue. It doesn't need us. It existed for billions of years before life appeared on Earth and developed intelligence and built spacecraft. It will exist for billions more after we're gone, whatever happens to us. That's both humbling and comforting. The universe doesn't depend on us, doesn't need us, but allows us to exist within it, to observe it, to try to understand it. Your breathing is very slow now, deep and even, the breathing of someone approaching or perhaps already in sleep. That's good. That's right. The story continues but doesn't require your attention. Let it be background, like the sound of distant waves, like rain on a roof, like any gentle constant sound that accompanies rest. The wanderer moves through space at 40 kilometers per second relative to the sun. That sounds fast, and it is by human standards. But space is so vast that even at this speed, it takes years to cross the distance from one planet to another, decades to leave the solar system, millennia to reach the nearest stars. In this vast slowness, in this patient unfolding of journeys measured in millennia and distances measured in light years, there is peace. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. Everything proceeds at the pace dictated by physics, by the laws that govern matter and energy, by the fundamental constants that determine how fast light travels, how strongly gravity pulls, how particles interact. You are part of this vast, slow system. The atoms in your body obey the same laws that govern the wanderer. The electrical signals in your neurons travel according to the same electromagnetic principles that created the wanderer's magnetic field. You are not separate from the cosmos, but deeply embedded in it, made of it, expressing its properties in your particular form. In the space between stars, there is a quality of silence unlike anything experienced on Earth. Not just absence of sound because space is vacuum and doesn't carry sound waves, but absence of almost everything. The density is roughly 1 atom per cubic centimeter, nearly perfect emptiness, more perfect than any vacuum we can create in laboratories on Earth. Yet even in this emptiness, things happen. Magnetic fields thread through the space between stars, invisible but real, detectable by their effects on charged particles. Cosmic rays, particles accelerated to nearly the speed of light by supernovae and other energetic events, stream through the void. Photons from distant stars cross the darkness, carrying information about events that happened thousands or millions of years ago. The wanderer moves through this realm now, through this near emptiness where the sun is already fading to just another bright star, where the planets are invisible, where the solar system is becoming just a region of space left behind, already fading into memory, if memory were possible for something without awareness. Let yourself imagine this silence, this emptiness, but not as something frightening or lonely. Think of it instead as peaceful, as restful, as the ultimate quiet space where nothing disturbs, nothing intrudes, nothing demands attention. The wanderer is alone but not lonely. It simply is, existing in the vast between, traveling through the dark with patient inevitability. Your own mind is finding its own quiet spaces now, drifting into regions where thought becomes less structured, where awareness fades, where the boundary between sleep and waking becomes uncertain, permeable, unimportant. This is good. This is what rest looks like. This is your consciousness finding its own version of the deep quiet between. Back on Mars, in the weeks following the Wanderer's passage, scientists continued to study the data, continued to refine their understanding. They published preliminary findings, shared data with colleagues around the world, began the process of writing formal papers for peer-reviewed journals. One team focused on the magnetic field measurements, creating detailed models of the field geometry, trying to understand its origin and structure. They compared it to magnetic fields measured around asteroids and comets in our own solar system, looking for patterns, looking for similarities and differences. Another team worked on the atmospheric data, analyzing the density fluctuations, the temperature variations, the electromagnetic effects. They built computer models of how the Wanderer's magnetic field might have interacted with Mars's thin atmosphere, with the solar wind, with the charged particles constantly streaming from the sun. A third team focused on the spectroscopic data, on understanding the organic molecules detected on the Wanderer's surface. They compared the spectra to laboratory measurements of similar compounds, to observations of comets and asteroids, to theoretical predictions about what molecules should form in interstellar environments. All of this work proceeded quietly, methodically, without drama or urgency. This is how most science happens, not in sudden breakthroughs, but in gradual accumulation of understanding, data point by data point, paper by paper, researcher by researcher. It's collective work, collaborative work, built on the foundation of everything that came before. The scientists involved would spend months or years analyzing this data, writing papers, presenting results at conferences, discussing findings with colleagues. Some would build entire research programs around questions raised by the Wanderer's passage. Graduate students would write theses examining specific aspects of the encounter. The event would ripple through the scientific community in ways both large and small. But none of this requires urgency. Understanding takes time. Good science cannot be rushed. The data is stored, preserved, available for analysis now and in the future. The Wanderer itself is gone, but what it revealed remains, waiting to be fully understood. In your own life, some things require urgency, require immediate action and quick decisions. But many things don't. Many things benefit from patience, from slow consideration, from letting understanding develop naturally over time. Rest is one of those things. You can't force sleep, can't make it happen through effort or will. You can only create conditions for it, then let it come naturally in its own time. The same is true for healing, for growth, for learning, for many of the most important processes in life. They happen at their own pace, according to their own rhythms, and trying to rush them often just interferes, creates problems, delays the very outcome you're seeking. So let go of any urgency, any sense that you should be sleeping by now, any worry that you're not resting enough. Simply be here, listening or not listening, aware or drifting, following the story or letting it fade into background. All of it is fine. All of it is part of the natural process of settling into rest. The Wanderer, in its long journey before reaching our solar system, experienced no urgency. It simply moved day after day, year after year, millennium after millennium, traveling through the dark at whatever speed its trajectory gave it. Time was meaningless in a sense because nothing changed. The stars slowly shifted position as it moved, appearing to rotate around it, but so slowly that the changes would be imperceptible except over centuries. If the wanderer could think, if it could experience, what would that journey have been like? Would it have been boring, lonely, endless? Or would it have been peaceful, meditative, a long, slow glide through quiet darkness? Perhaps consciousness itself requires change, requires input, requires something happening to be aware of. In the deep quiet between stars where nothing changes for centuries, perhaps consciousness couldn't exist even if the wanderer had a brain. Perhaps it would be more like deep, dreamless sleep, time passing unnoticed, experience collapsed into instantaneous transition from one state to another with no memory of the between. Your own sleep, when it comes, will be something like this. Hours will pass in what feels like moments. You'll close your eyes and open them, and it will be morning, or later, or some other time, and you'll have no memory of most of what happened in between. Moments of dreaming perhaps, brief returns to partial awareness, but mostly absence, mostly the peaceful nothingness of deep rest. This is gift, this ability to let consciousness go, to trust that your body will continue its necessary functions without your attention, to surrender control and awareness and simply not exist as an experiencing subject for a while. Many things in life require active engagement, require your attention and effort and presence. But sleep is different. Sleep requires letting go, requires absence, requires trusting in processes beyond your conscious control. The moon circles Earth, Earth circles the sun circles the galactic center, the galaxy moves through space toward other galaxies. Everything circles, everything moves in patterns, everything expresses the fundamental tendency of the universe toward motion within structure. Your blood circles through your body, your breath cycles in and out, your awareness rises and falls, the same patterns, the same cycles echoed at every scale from the cellular to the cosmic. In ancient times, people noticed these patterns, these cycles. They tracked the moon's phases, predicted eclipses, marked the seasons. They built monuments aligned with solstices and equinoxes, created calendars based on celestial cycles, wove their lives into the rhythms of the cosmos. Modern life has separated us somewhat from these rhythms. We work in artificial light, eat foods out of season, travel across time zones, live in climates controlled by heating and cooling. We can ignore the cycles, can live as if they don't matter, as if we're separate from natural rhythms, but our bodies, remember. We still feel the pull of circadian rhythms, the need to sleep when it's dark, to wake when it's light. We still cycle through seasons of more and less energy, more and less sociability, more and less hunger for different foods. We still respond to the moon's phases even if we don't consciously notice them. We're still part of the natural world, still embedded in its rhythms, however much modern technology might obscure that fact. The wanderer's journey is part of these patterns too. It moves in response to gravity, following mathematical curves through space. It rotates, tumbles, expresses angular momentum inherited from whatever event sent it on its journey. It warms slightly when near stars, cools in the darkness between. Even in its solitary journey, it participates in cosmic rhythms. Mars has its own rhythms. Its day is almost the same length as Earth's, 24 hours and 37 minutes. Its year is 687 Earth days, almost twice as long as ours. Its seasons are longer as a result and more extreme because Mars's orbit is more elliptical than Earth's, bringing it significantly closer to and farther from the Sun during each orbit. The spacecraft orbiting Mars have added their own rhythms to the system. Each one follows its particular orbit, circling the planet once every few hours, passing over different regions, sometimes eclipsed by Mars's shadow, sometimes in constant sunlight. They experience day and night on accelerated schedules, sunrise and sunset, multiple times in what we call a day. The instruments on these spacecraft cycle through their observing modes. Cameras image the surface during passes when lighting is optimal. Spectrometers collect data when looking at specific targets. Radar sounds the subsurface. Radio occultation experiments study the atmosphere. Each instrument has its time, its place in the schedule, its role in the overall mission. This careful choreography of observations is planned months in advance. Teams on Earth coordinate to ensure that all science objectives are met, that all instruments get the time they need, that conflicts are resolved. It's collaborative work, requiring communication and compromise and shared commitment to mission success. When the Wanderer appeared, this careful choreography was disrupted, not destroyed, just paused, adjusted, refocused. The spacecraft were redirected toward this new target of opportunity. Other observations were postponed, resources were reallocated. The system adapted, flexed, incorporated this new element into its rhythms. This ability to adapt is crucial in space exploration. Plans are important, but so is flexibility. Unexpected opportunities arise, unexpected problems occur. Spacecraft get sick, instruments fail, new discoveries demand attention. The ability to respond, to adjust, to incorporate the unexpected while maintaining core objectives, this is what separates successful missions from failed ones. Your own body has similar abilities. When you get sick, resources are redirected toward fighting the illness. When you're injured, healing takes precedence over other processes. When you're stressed, hormones adjust to provide energy for dealing with challenges. The body adapts constantly, flexibly, maintaining core functions while responding to whatever circumstances arise. Right now, your body is adapting to the state of rest. Heart rate is slowing, blood pressure is dropping, growth hormone is being released, proteins are being synthesized, memories are being consolidated, waste products are being cleared from the brain. All of this happens automatically without your attention or effort, your body's circadian systems orchestrating countless processes simultaneously. Let yourself trust this orchestration. Your body knows how to rest, how to heal, how to prepare for tomorrow. You don't need to manage it, don't need to supervise it, don't need to worry about it. Simply let it work, let it cycle through its necessary processes, let it do what it evolved to do over billions of years of life on Earth. The cycles continue whether you pay attention or not. Mars orbits, the Wanderer travels, your heart beats, breath flows, time passes, and none of it requires your conscious participation. You can simply be, simply exist, simply rest in the midst of these vast, patient cycles. Space is sometimes called an ocean, and the metaphor is apt in many ways. Like the ocean, space is vast, mostly empty, full of currents and streams that carry things across great distances. Like the ocean, it's hostile to human life, but full of wonders for those who can safely explore it. Like the ocean, it connects all shores, all destinations, making everything ultimately accessible to those with the means and the determination to travel. But space is vaster than any ocean. If you traveled at the speed of light, you could circle Earth's oceans in less than a second. But to cross just our solar system would take hours, to reach the nearest star would take years, to cross our galaxy would take 100,000 years, and there are hundreds of billions of galaxies, each separated from the others by millions of light years of emptiness. The scale is almost impossible to grasp. We can write the numbers, can do the mathematics, can create visualizations and models, but truly comprehending what these distances mean, truly internalizing the vastness of the cosmos, that's beyond human cognitive capacity. Our brains evolved to understand human-scale things, distances we can walk, objects we can see and touch. The cosmic scale is simply too vast for intuitive comprehension. And yet we can feel something of it when you look up at a truly dark sky, when you see the Milky Way stretching across the heavens, when you realize that each of those tiny points of light is a star like our sun, possibly with its own planets, its own worlds, maybe its own life. You can feel a sense of the vastness, a sense of your own smallness and the universe's immensity. This feeling can be disturbing, can create a sense of existential insignificance, but it can also be peaceful, can provide perspective, can remind you that your problems, your worries, your daily concerns are tiny against the backdrop of cosmic space and time. Both responses are valid, both contain truth. The wanderer exists in this vastness, a tiny fragment of rock or ice, smaller than the smallest asteroid, insignificant by almost any measure, and yet it's part of the cosmic story, part of the grand pattern of matter moving through space, influenced by gravity and momentum and all the fundamental forces that shape the universe. You too are tiny in cosmic terms, a pattern of atoms that exists briefly before dissolving back into the environment. But you're part of the story too, part of the universe's attempt to understand itself, one of the rare places where matter has organized itself into something that can observe and think and wonder. This is the paradox of cosmic perspective. We're insignificant in scale, temporary in time, powerless against the vast forces that shape the universe, but we're also miraculous, rare beyond measure, capable of things no other known form of matter can do. We're both nothing and everything, depending on how you look at it. Let both truths rest gently in your awareness. You're small, yes, temporary, yes, ultimately powerless against entropy and death. But you're also alive right now, conscious right now, experiencing this moment right now. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything in its way. The ocean of space continues in all directions, infinite or nearly so, full of galaxies and stars and planets and moons and asteroids and comets and dust and gas and light and darkness. The wanderer moves through this ocean, one tiny drop in an incomprehensibly large sea. Mars orbits in its small corner of this ocean, circling one star among hundreds of billions, and you lie here, on Earth, on this rare world where water is liquid and air is breathable and life flourishes in astonishing diversity. You're in perhaps the most valuable location in the universe, at least from a human perspective. Earth, this tiny blue marble, is the only place we know of that can support human life without extensive technological support. It might be common, there might be billions of Earth-like worlds scattered throughout the universe. Or it might be rare, precious beyond measure, a cosmic accident unlikely to be repeated. We don't know yet. We're still searching for life elsewhere, still analyzing data from exoplanets, still looking for biosignatures in atmospheric spectra, still listening for signals from other civilizations. Maybe we'll find them. Maybe we're alone, the only conscious observers in a vast, unconscious universe. Either answer would be profound. But regardless of the answer, right now, tonight, you're here. On this world, in this moment, breathing this air, experiencing this existence. The cosmic questions can wait. The mysteries can remain mysterious. What matters now is simply this: the immediate experience of being alive, of resting, of letting go into sleep. The ocean of space doesn't care whether you sleep or wake. The wanderer doesn't know you exist. Mars continues its orbit utterly indifferent to your existence. And that's fine. That's as it should be. The universe doesn't need to care about you for your existence to matter. You matter to yourself, to the people who care about you, to the tiny corner of the universe you can influence. And that's enough. Darkness is not absence, but presence. Not emptiness, but fullness. The darkness of space is full of possibilities, of distant light traveling toward us, of phenomena we haven't detected yet, of processes we don't understand. The darkness of night is full of rest, of repair, of dreaming, of the body's necessary work. The wanderer travels through darkness most of the time. Only rarely does it pass close enough to a star to experience significant light. Most of its existence is in the dark between stars, in regions where the nearest star might be light years distant, where starlight is too faint to read by, too diffuse to provide warmth. But this darkness is not frightening, it's not oppressive, it simply is. And in that darkness, the wanderer continues, patient, changeless, expressing the universe's tendency toward motion, toward change, toward the ceaseless rearrangement of matter and energy according to physical law. Your own journey towards sleep is a journey into darkness. As consciousness fades, as awareness dims, you enter regions where normal waking thoughts don't reach, where self-awareness dissolves, where the boundary between you and not you becomes uncertain. This dissolution is not death but rest, not ending but transformation. In sleep, you're not gone but changed, existing in a different mode, your consciousness dim but not extinguished, your brain active but in different patterns, processing differently, remembering differently, being differently. Let yourself surrender to this transformation. There's no need to hold on to waking consciousness, no need to maintain awareness, no need to follow this story or any story. Simply let go, let the darkness receive you, let yourself dissolve into the rest your body needs. The darkness is safe. Your body knows how to navigate it. You've done this thousands of times before, every night of your life. Each time you've surrendered to sleep, you've returned safely in the morning. This time will be no different. The darkness will hold you gently, your body will do its necessary work, and you'll wake refreshed, restored, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. In the weeks after the wanderer passed, after the shutdown ended and operations returned to normal, some people at NASA felt a subtle sadness. The excitement was over. The mystery, while not completely solved, had been reduced to technical questions requiring patient analysis. The dramatic moment had passed, leaving only routine work behind. But others felt differently. They felt gratitude for the encounter, appreciation for what had been learned, excitement for what might be discovered in future analysis. They understood that the dramatic moments are rare but necessary, that most of science is patient work, that both are valuable, both are necessary for progress. This is true in life as well. We tend to value the dramatic moments, the peaks of experience, the times when everything feels intense and alive and meaningful. But the valleys between peaks are equally important, equally necessary. We grow during quiet times, we integrate experiences during restful periods. We prepare for future peaks by resting in present valleys. Your life contains both moments of intensity, drama, excitement, challenge, and moments of quiet, rest, routine, peace. Both are valuable, both are necessary. Neither is more real or more important than the other. They're complementary aspects of a full human life. Right now, you're in a valley, a quiet moment, a time of rest. This is not less important than the dramatic moments. This is when your body repairs itself, when your mind consolidates learning, when you prepare for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. Honor this time, value this rest, surrender to it fully. The wanderer has no valleys and peaks. Its experience, if it has experience, is constant, unchanging, a long, flat line extending from its origin to some distant, unimaginable end. It doesn't rest because it doesn't exert itself. It doesn't sleep because it never wakes. It simply is existing in a single constant mode, traveling, always traveling. But you're different, you're alive, you cycle through states. You wake and sleep, work and rest, engage and withdraw. These cycles are what make you alive, what distinguish living things from rocks and ice and wandering interstellar objects. Embrace these cycles, live them fully. Don't resist the night when it comes, don't cling to day. Let each state flow into the next naturally, easily, without resistance. The resistance is what creates suffering. When you're tired but fight sleep, that's suffering. When you're awake but wish you could sleep, that's suffering. When you accept the present state, whatever it is, the suffering dissolves. You tired? Good. Rest. You're awake? Good. Be awake. No resistance, no wishing things were different. Just accepting what is. This is an ancient wisdom found in many traditions expressed in different ways. Let go, accept, surrender, not in defeat but in wisdom. Not giving up but aligning yourself with reality as it is, rather than fighting for reality as you wish it were. The wanderer doesn't resist its trajectory, it doesn't wish it were somewhere else. It simply moves where physics takes it, where the sum of all forces propels it. And there's a kind of perfection in this, a kind of alignment with reality that creates no friction, no resistance, no suffering. You can't achieve that perfection. You're conscious, you have preferences, you want some things and not others. But you can move toward it. You can reduce resistance, can practice acceptance, can learn to flow with circumstances rather than always fighting against them. Sleep is a good place to practice this. You can't force it, can't make it happen through effort. You can only create conditions for it and then let it come naturally. This letting go, this surrender, this trust in natural processes, this is what sleep requires. And it's what life often requires too. The spacecraft at Mars, after the shutdown ended, returned to their observing routines. But the operators carried the experience with them, the memory of adaptation, of responding to the unexpected, of coming together as a community to face a shared challenge. The missions continued but enriched, deepened, made more meaningful by what had happened. Your own tomorrow will be enriched by tonight's rest. The sleep you're approaching or already experiencing is not wasted time, but investment time. Every hour of quality sleep makes tomorrow more productive, more enjoyable, more successful. Rest is not absence of activity, but a different kind of activity, equally important, equally valuable. Let any guilt about resting dissolve. You're not being lazy, you're not avoiding responsibility. You're doing something necessary, something that enables everything else you do. Without rest, nothing else works. With rest, everything becomes more possible. The darkness deepens, the story continues but fades to background, to barely audible whisper, to something you might hear or might not, might follow or might not. It doesn't matter, the story will be here whether you hear it or not. The wanderer will continue its journey whether you think about it or not. Mars will orbit whether you're aware of it or not. And you'll rest, you'll sleep, you'll dream or not dream, remember or not remember, experience or not experience. And it will all be exactly as it should be, exactly as it needs to be, exactly right for this moment, this night, this particular journey into darkness and rest. Everything in the universe is connected, not mystically but physically, through chains of cause and effect that extend across space and time. The atoms in your body were forged in stars that exploded before the solar system formed. The water you drink fell as rain that evaporated from oceans that have existed for billions of years. The air you breathe has been breathed by countless other organisms throughout Earth's history. The wanderer, traveling through space so far away, is connected to you through the shared laws of physics, the shared atoms of the periodic table, the shared universe in which you both exist. Its journey and yours are part of the same cosmic story. Different chapters perhaps, different scales and durations and meanings, but ultimately part of the same vast interconnected narrative. When scientists at NASA studied the wanderer, they were studying something physically distant but conceptually close, something that informed their understanding of the universe, which in turn informs technology, which affects daily life, which shapes your world even if you never think about asteroids or spacecraft or Mars. Everything affects everything else, rippling outward in ways both obvious and subtle. A butterfly flaps its wings and weather systems shift. a scientist makes a discovery, and technology eventually transforms society. An interstellar object passes Mars and our understanding of the universe deepens slightly, adding to the foundation of knowledge that supports all of modern civilization. You're part of these connections too. Your actions ripple outward, affecting people you know and people you don't, changing situations in ways you'll never fully understand. Sometimes the effects are immediate and obvious. More often they're delayed and subtle, small influences that accumulate with other influences to create outcomes no single person caused, but many contributed to. This interconnection is comforting in a way. You're never truly alone because you're always part of these vast networks of cause and effect, always influencing and being influenced, always giving and receiving, always in relationship with everything else that exists. But it can also feel overwhelming. If everything affects everything else, how can you ever know what to do? How can you make good decisions when the full consequences are unknowable? How can you live ethically when every action has ripples you can't predict or control? The answer is simple, but not easy. Do your best with what you know, act according to your values, and accept that you can't control or predict everything. The universe is too complex for perfect knowledge or perfect control. All you can do is act with intention and integrity and trust that, on average, good intentions lead to good outcomes, even if any individual action might have unexpected consequences. The scientists studying the Wanderer did this. They made decisions based on incomplete information, acted according to their professional values, accepted uncertainty as inevitable. They didn't wait for perfect knowledge before acting, because perfect knowledge is impossible. They did their best and that was enough. You do the same every day. You make decisions with incomplete information. You act according to your values, even when outcomes are uncertain. You do your best and accept that some things are beyond your control. This is all anyone can do. This is enough. As you rest here, as consciousness fades further, as sleep deepens or approaches, know that you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do. Rest is not failure or weakness or avoidance. Rest is necessary participation in the natural rhythms that sustain life. You're fulfilling your biological needs, honoring your body's requirements, doing what billions of years of evolution designed you to do. The connections extend through time as well as space. You're connected to your ancestors through genes and culture, connected to your descendants through the world you're helping create, connected to all humans through shared biology and shared history and shared planet. The Wanderer is connected to its past, to whatever stellar system birthed it, to whatever event ejected it into interstellar space. It's connected to its future, to wherever it will eventually arrive, or what will eventually destroy it. And it's connected to its present, to the path it follows through space, to the physical laws that govern its motion, to the universe that contains it. All of these connections exist simultaneously. Past, present, and future are not separate but interwoven, each affecting the others, each necessary to understand the others. The Wanderer's present trajectory only makes sense given its past. Its future is determined by its present. Everything flows together in one continuous, interconnected system. Your own life is the same. Your present is the result of your past and the seed of your future. Each moment flows into the next. Each choice creates circumstances that affect future choices. Each experience shapes perception that influences future experience. Can't separate these threads. They're woven together into the fabric of your existence. Let this interconnection support you as you rest. You're not isolated, not separate, not alone. You're part of something vast and ancient and ongoing, part of life's great pattern, part of the universe's tendency toward complexity and consciousness and meaning. Your rest tonight connects to everyone who has ever slept, everyone who has ever surrendered to darkness and trusted in the dawn's return. The Wanderer brought mysteries, yes, but what do those mysteries teach us beyond the specific technical questions they raise? What larger lessons does this encounter offer? First, perhaps, humility. We don't know everything, we can't predict everything. The universe is vast and complex and full of surprises. Our theories are always provisional, always subject to revision when new data arrives. This is not a weakness of science, but its strength, its willingness to change based on evidence, its preference for truth over comfort. The electromagnetic effects the Wanderer produced were unexpected. They didn't violate physics, didn't require new laws, but they weren't anticipated. Scientists had to adapt, had to think creatively, had to consider possibilities they hadn't previously imagined. This is healthy. This is how understanding grows, not just accumulating facts, but reorganizing frameworks, seeing familiar things in new ways, recognizing patterns that were always there but previously unnoticed. Second, patience. Understanding takes time. The shutdown was temporary, lasting only weeks, but the full analysis of the data will take years. Papers will be published, discussed, challenged, revised. Models will be built, tested, refined. The process is slow because it's thorough, careful, methodical. This patience is necessary for reliable knowledge. In your own life, some things require quick action, but many don't. Many things benefit from patience, from letting understanding develop naturally, from not forcing conclusions before evidence is sufficient. Sleep is one of these things. You can't force it, can only create conditions and wait patiently for it to arrive. Third, collaboration. No single person understood all aspects of the Wanderer encounter. It required planetary scientists and plasma physicists and astronomers and many others, each bringing specialized knowledge, each contributing pieces that fit together into a more complete picture. Science is collective work, built on communication and shared effort and willingness to teach and learn from each other. Life is similarly collaborative. You depend on others constantly for food and shelter and knowledge and emotional support. Others depend on you. We're social creatures, evolved to live in communities, to work together, to share burdens and joys. The myth of the isolated individual succeeding through pure self-reliance is just that, a myth. Real success, real flourishing, always involves support from others and contribution to others. Fourth, wonder. Despite all the analysis and measurement and theoretical work, the Wanderer remains wondrous, a visitor from another star system traveling for possibly hundreds of thousands of years, passing through our small corner of the galaxy briefly before continuing its eternal journey. That's amazing, that's worth celebrating, regardless of what specific scientific questions it raises or answers. Life itself is wondrous if you pay attention. The fact that matter can organize itself into patterns that think and feel and choose, that's astounding. The fact that you exist, that you're conscious right now, that you can hear these words and understand them and react to them, that's miraculous in its way. Don't let familiarity dull your appreciation for the extraordinary fact of existence. Finally, perspective. The Wanderer's journey reminds us how vast space is, how long time is, how small we are in cosmic terms. This can be humbling, even disturbing, but it can also be freeing. Your problems, real as they are tiny in cosmic perspective. The things you worry about, legitimate as those worries might be, don't matter to the universe. This doesn't make them unimportant to you, but it can help put them in context, can provide relief from the tendency to catastrophize, to treat temporary difficulties as permanent disasters. You'll wake tomorrow. Whatever challenges you face, you'll face them. Whatever joys are available, you'll experience them. Life will continue as it always has, as it always will, until it doesn't. And that continuation, that simple, ongoing persistence of existence, is itself a kind of grace, a gift to be appreciated rather than taken for granted. The Wanderer doesn't appreciate its existence. It can't. It's just matter, following physical law, moving through space. But you can appreciate yours. You can notice, can pay attention, can find meaning and beauty and value in the simple fact of being alive, of experiencing this particular moment in this particular way. As sleep deepens, as this long night continues its patient work, let these lessons settle gently into whatever part of you receives such things. Not as intellectual concepts to be remembered and analyzed, but as felt truths, as intuitions, as subtle shifts in how you orient toward existence. You don't need to work at this. Understanding doesn't require effort. Just let the words wash over you, let meaning seep in naturally, let whatever wants to be integrated in its own time and way. Your unconscious mind is wise. It knows what you need. It will take what serves and release what doesn't. The universe is patient. Mars orbits. The wanderer travels. Your body rests and repairs. Time passes. Nothing is rushed. Everything unfolds at its natural pace, perfect in its timing, exactly as it should be. Let yourself match this patience. Let yourself trust in natural rhythms. Let yourself release control and simply be, simply exist. Simply rest in the midst of vast cosmic processes that require nothing from you except your quiet presence. The story is nearly complete now, just a few more minutes, a few more words, and then silence, space for you to rest without even the gentle background of voice and narrative. But there's no hurry. We'll arrive at that silence when we arrive. Until then, let the words continue, soft and slow, requiring nothing, offering only a companionship in the night. In the end, what remains? The wanderer continues its journey, already so distant we could never see it again, even with our most powerful telescopes. Mars continues its orbit, patient and unchanging. The spacecraft continue their missions, observing, measuring, sending data home. NASA has returned to its regular operations, the shutdown now just a footnote in mission logs. But something has changed subtly, invisibly. Our understanding is slightly deeper. Our appreciation for cosmic complexity is slightly richer. The scientists who studied this event carry those lessons forward into future work. The data remains available for future analysis for researchers not yet born who might see patterns we're missing, who might answer questions we haven't thought to ask. This is how knowledge grows, not in great leaps but in small steps, each one building on what came before, each one enabling what comes after. The Wanderer encounter is one small step, one small addition to humanity's growing understanding of the universe we inhabit. And you listening here in the deep night, you're part of this story too. Not directly, perhaps. You're not analyzing data or writing papers or operating spacecraft. But you're part of the species that does these things, part of the collective effort to understand, part of the ongoing conversation between humanity and cosmos that has continued since our ancestors first looked up at stars and wondered what they were. Your contribution might be different, might be raising children who grow up to become scientists, might be working in ways that support the economic and social structures that enable space exploration, might be simply being human, experiencing and thinking and caring, adding your particular perspective to the vast diversity of human consciousness. Every role matters, every person contributes. The astronomer needs the farmer who grows food. The scientist needs the taxpayer who funds research. The teacher needs the student who learns and asks questions. We're all connected, all necessary, all part of the same grand collaborative project of being human, of surviving and flourishing and trying to understand. As the night deepens toward its darkest point, as the turning of Earth carries your location further from the sun, as stars wheel overhead in their ancient, patient patterns, let yourself feel held by something larger than yourself. Not necessarily anything supernatural or mystical, just the simple fact of connection, of participation in systems and patterns and cycles that began billions of years before you were born and will continue billions of years after you're gone. You're temporary, yes, but part of something ongoing. You're small, yes, but part of something vast. You're limited, yes, but part of something that continuously transcends limits through collective effort and accumulated understanding. The wanderer, in its solitary journey, might seem lonely, But it's not separate from the universe. It's part of it, expressing it, manifesting its properties and principles in its particular form. And you're the same. Not separate, but integrated, not isolated, but connected, not alone, but part of the vast web of relationships that makes up reality. Let this awareness, if it's present, support your rest, or let it fade if it's not helpful. Take what serves and release what doesn't. These are just words, just sounds, just one person's attempt to weave together science and story and sleep into something useful, something calming, something that might help you rest. The silence is coming soon. The story is ending, but before it does, just this. Thank you for listening, for trusting this voice to accompany you into sleep, for giving your attention and your time. May your rest be deep. May your dreams, if you dream, be pleasant. May you wake refreshed and restored, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The universe doesn't need your wakefulness right now. It will continue perfectly well without your awareness. So let yourself go, let consciousness fade, let sleep come fully, completely, taking you into the rest you need and deserve. The wanderer travels on alone in the dark, patient and changeless. Mars circles the sun, rust-colored and quiet. Earth turns, bringing dawn to some places while others sleep. And you rest, breathing slowly, deeply, held by gravity and bed, and the simple fact of being alive on this rare blue world. Everything is as it should be. Everything is perfect in its imperfection. Everything continues, and you can rest now, you can sleep, you can let go completely. The story ends here, fading into silence, leaving you in peace. May the night hold you gently, may sleep come easily, may you rest well. Tonight, you drifted through the cosmos, through the story of a visitor from distant stars, through mysteries both solved and unsolved, through the patient work of science and the vast, slow turning of celestial spheres. You journeyed to Mars in imagination, followed the wanderer through dark spaces between stars, felt the rhythms that connect all things from atoms to galaxies, and through it all, you rested. You let your body do its necessary work. You surrendered to sleep's embrace, trusting in natural processes that have sustained life for billions of years. The universe continues its dance. The wanderer travels on, Mars orbits, Earth turns, and you rest part of all of it, connected to all of it, held safely in the web of existence that makes up everything that is. If this journey brought you peace, if these words helped ease you into rest, you're welcome to return here whenever you need. The story will be here, patient and unchanging, ready to accompany you into sleep whenever you ask. For now, simply rest, simply sleep, simply be. The night is yours. The darkness is safe. And morning will come when it comes, bringing with it whatever tomorrow holds. Sleep well, dear listener. Sleep deep. The cosmos watches over you and all is well.